Hello and welcome to our, I think, second horror cinema podcast episode of the Paul trilogy of the Hammer Dracula movies, which that's a mouthful. I'm Joe, here with me is my co-host Dan.
Hello and greetings.
This second Paul trilogy movie is,
Slow.
takes about 33 minutes for the plot to start, another 25 minutes, actually 22 minutes before Dracula appears, and another 20 minutes for the plot to get underway, for the vampire hunting to pick up, and by then the movie's over. Now, Christopher Lee had a common complaint about a lot of the Dracula movies, and it's that they would write the script, then squeeze in Dracula as an afterthought. And this movie feels that way. Honestly, the drama between the various characters is not entirely all that interesting. Like, we'll start with the teenage drama. Or maybe not the teenage drama, but like the young adult drama. It's kind of meh, but at the same time it's linked with the adult drama. You got one couple that are engaged now, and they're as happy as can be. And you have, in turn, the character of Alice and her boyfriend Paul, which she is apparently abused by her father, who doesn't like her hanging out with Paul. And it's strongly hinted, and even all but stated, that the father is jealous of Paul and desires his daughter, considering he's in a few scenes subtly checking her out, which is disgusting. And,
To say the least.
yeah. And the thing is, this kind of drives Alice a little insane when she's possessed by Dracula. Like, no joke, she goes legit crazy. So that she kills her dad gleefully, which that's horrible, but it's not the most horrible thing. The fact is, she willingly and happily becomes the Renfield to an extent, and drags her friend Lucy into things so that Lucy becomes a vampire because she's the one that Dracula wants. And then Alice gets a happily ever after at the end, which, to an extent, it feels undeserved, considering what was done to Lucy and her boyfriend. Because Lucy, in turn, turns her boyfriend, once she's turned into a vampire, so that he kills his dad before he's basically taken down, which this is kind of Alice's fault. So on that one, I'm not sure how I feel. In turn, Paul lost his sister, I think, because I think Lucy was his sister. As to the middle-aged guy's drama, you've got three guys who are fairly debauched, and they're not very imaginative or smart, although the one with the mustache is kind of smart to an extent, sort of. The other two are dumb as bricks, and the three decide to approach one guy who has memorized some of the local nocturnal workers, to put it politely, and he becomes a source of fascination for these middle-aged guys, who then decide that they want to do something sordid, terrible, that even they haven't done yet. In turn, he asks them, okay, would you be willing to sell your soul? And they go, okay, what does that mean? No, exactly what I'm asking. Are you prepared to sell your soul? And you have them, okay, I guess. Then, when it comes time for them to drink the blood of Dracula, they decide, no, they don't want to do that. They don't want to die. And so, Lord Courtley, the guy trying to rope them into things, who's also a cult member dedicated to Drac, drinks the blood, dies, and becomes Dracula, sort of, or Dracula kind of consumes his body. It's weird. And he then decides to hunt down these guys, claiming that it's for revenge, but it makes no sense because the guy choked on his blood. It's weird. But this movie is only tangentially linked to the previous movie, with a guy having seen Drac die and becoming fascinated. And then he's the guy who sells the remains of Dracula to Lord Courtly and the old guys. So, anyways, that's the first hour of the movie out of the way. And Drac hunts down the first guy and Alice. That's out of the way. As for Lucy, her dad refuses to allow her to be purified of the vampire taint. But in turn, he gets, in a rather perverted scene, staked to death by a vampiric Lucy and a gleeful Alice. Now, he did kind of deserve to go for basically attempting to murder his buddy, who was trying to purify Lucy. But on the other hand, the atrociously horrid way he dies at the hands of primarily Alice is just... It's at that point you kind of go, in my opinion, Alice has lost all hope for her soul. Like, she is truly lost, like her dad, to an extent. And yet, for her to get a redemption arc feels forced. It doesn't fit or feel quite right. They probably should have introduced another love interest for Paul, so that one who doesn't fall from grace, so to speak. As for the last guy, he's stabbed to death by his vampiric son before I think his son gets taken down. It's implied the son has become a vampire or possessed or something. It doesn't really matter. But that guy transfers his knowledge to, leaves behind several letters and instructions for Paul, who then purifies the church and thus stops Dracula. Of course, Alice turns on Drac in a very badly done scene. And Dracula just falls over dead because there's too many crosses, which is kind of dumb. I don't mind a cross taking him down, but to an extent. But just, there are various cross shapes, and just the sight of them is what takes him down. Which is so weird. You could probably take down Dracula in this movie just by pressing your fingers together in the sign of a cross. But let's rate this movie. What were your thoughts on it?
It felt like I was watching two different movies.
Yeah, it does feel that way.
Because the old men's plot doesn't feel linked to the younger people's plot. Even Alice and her father feel so divorced.
From the Dracula movie.
So divorced even from themselves.
Yeah, it's such a weird movie.
It's like they took two different scripts of two different movies, threw Dracula in the middle, and brought them all together.
I think that's actually what they did.
Because the old man's plot could have been a good movie had it been its own monster movie.
Yeah.
Paul, even though we say it's part of the Paul trilogy, Paul only cameos.
Yeah. So, want to rate it?
Probably a 1?
I'm going to say 1.1.
Because
I actually liked it a bit more than you, but that's because it has Ralph Bates. I really like him as an actor, so I guess I can kind of forgive a lot of things. And part of me kind of likes the fact that Dracula's not the most horrid character or human being in the movie. Lord Courtly's horrible, but that one dad is just the worst. I like that, but at the same time, I wish there were more sympathetic characters to an extent, or that they appeared more often, or that there was more of a clear plot. Like this is a subpar movie. It's just a time waster.
it's like Paul felt like filler.
Yeah, probably was. Anyways, if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to smash that like and that subscribe button.